You can maybe start with this. Hey everybody.
Hey everybody, I'm Ben Yee.
I'm Elissa Stein. And we're going to start off, there's so much to talk about after the midterms yesterday, but I remember you saying, when I first met you, which was not even 2 years ago, that activism, and being out on the streets and stuff is not all that effective.
Activism's effective, some things aren't as effective.
Right.
Voting counts though, as
Voting
we saw.
totally counts, but activism is really effective.
Yeah.
Activism took down the IDC.
It did.
Activism brought all these new people, not brought them into the race, but it made them visible. Like people going out and showing up at rallies and doing things. And so, I think that so much, certainly of what happened in New York, the changes that happened in the state senate, and we'll talk about these things later, but major changes in large part because of people who hadn't necessarily been active participants before, just jumped on that activism bandwagon and really, really made change happen.
Yeah, I honestly, there's a saying in politics and many things, which is that victory has many mothers while defeat is an orphan. And right now, everybody's going to come out of the woodwork to claim victory in the midterms and for the state senate. The state party is going to do it, the D-Trip's going to do it, the DNC is going to do it, and I don't think that any of those entities are what drove victory for progressives or even Democrats.
Yeah.
The message was totally all over the place for the most part. Most people didn't feel it. From what I heard from folks on the street, and I'm in party leadership, people didn't feel like there was a strong voice of the Democratic Party. This was something that was driven by activists and people who cared enough about their society and their country and their government to stand up and support candidates that came out of the woodwork, to do the groundwork of knocking on doors and calling people and raising small dollar donations so that regular people could win over special interests and organized opposition.
I saw yesterday when I went to vote, and it was heartening that there were so many people, even though Greenwich Village, New York City, active participants anyway, but I saw my state senator, Brad Hoylman. 2 years ago, I had no idea who he was. And I saw him, and I gave him a kiss hello, and I said, this is great. And he said, it is. He said, but it's a mess in there, and the elections in 2020 will be a disaster without voter reform. And I said, you know what? Senate wins, and there's a majority in Albany. I will help you on voter reform. That's something that I think is really important in New York State. And so I emailed him this morning, and I said, I'm in. You want to work on voter reform? Whatever I can do, I'm happy to do. And I thought again, 2 years ago, I didn't even know who he was, or that there were issues with, to think that maybe there's a different way. Right, but maybe there's a different way of doing that. The ballot machines weren't working properly. There weren't enough people there. I saw a fight break out between two of the poll workers.
Really?
It was a little sketchy. I saw other places where the polling machines were in the rain and people couldn't vote. There's so many things in New York where you think, New York is a progressive blue state. You know what? This is not working. We don't have early voting. My daughter in Chicago tried to do absentee ballot voting, never got the forms that she needed to in time. And other kids in college, the same thing. It shouldn't be so hard to vote. When there are people out there who want to vote, you shouldn't be waiting online for 3 hours in New York City. You come up with this new electronic voting system, but the scanners don't work. And this, our thing yesterday, it was in 2 pieces and you had to rip them apart, but if you didn't rip it apart carefully, then you could jam the scanner. Like that's
people
all
waited
just,
online for hours. And this isn't Georgia where we've got a Secretary of State who's trying to disenfranchise people. This is in New York State. But so perfect segue then actually. So, top agenda items now that we've retaken the state senate.
Yes, all right, so hold on, we're wrapping up this video and we'll be back in 30 seconds with the next. See ya.